Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast from the School of Modern Media at UPES. I'm Nalin Mehta. What we are discussing today is the future of the digital media, and we have a very special panel. Charpit Arora, she is Senior VP and Business Head at Voot. We have VK Karthika, who is the publisher and editor of Westland, right behind me. We have Jaya Bhattacharjee Rose, who writes on, who's a publishing agent, but also writes on publishing. And we have Vivek Vaswani. He's a dean of the School of Media at Pearl Academy, but also an actor, producer, director, man of many parts, symbolizes Bollywood in many ways. Let me start with you, Chanpreet. You run one of the largest OTT apps in India. What do you think is driving the whole digital boom and this revolution at the moment?
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Voot is a very big platform. I run AWOD, part of the business. But the main driver of the digital economy has been access to data. That's what started in 2016 when data became near free. And post that, the second major driver for this digital boom has been access to video and audio content. Video and audio content and search were primarily in English or foreign pre-2016. And post-2016, what started happening was search became audio-based. Videos and audio content in local languages across 14, 15 languages started to appear, and it actually became a primary tool of entertainment for us. So the creators economy, which was earlier limited to maybe YouTube or Facebook as social and open video platforms, exploded. Today, the mobile phone has 91% density in India. TV never exceeded 66%, right? And the second fundamental difference between digital and linear is that it's not just video on demand. Let's just say we went past that in DTH, but it is a personal entertainment device, which is something that we never had, say 10 years ago when we were still watching TV in single TV household with 4 or 5 members, which has given a major rise to consumption as a trend. And on the other hand, creators have got an opportunity to create content which otherwise would have never seen the light of the day. How much content can turn up on TV, in theaters, but today there is no limit to how much content you can consume on digital as and when you like. So I'd say it's a combination of data access, mobile handset, audio search, and the creators economy that is getting created.
Thanks for that, Chanpreet. And there was something you said about screens on that, and there's something I want to ask Vivek about it. But Vivek, before I come to you, let me ask Karthika. Karthika, you run one of the largest publishing houses in India. You just resurrected it, and you're also, along with Pratilipy, which is the largest digital publishing digital publisher in India of user-generated content in particular. So from where you sit in publishing books, how does this whole digital revolution look? Is it scary? Is it something exciting? This whole transition that's happening from where you sit from the publishing side, your comments on that?
It is scary actually, because it feels like we have to reinvent ourselves completely to fit in with this new world. But I would, for instance, say that if you watch, say, Game of Thrones, which was one of the biggest franchises, right? People who read the Game of Thrones series and people who watched it, I think they got 2 different experiences out of it. One does not negate the other, or one doesn't mean that you don't need the other. But what you get out of that book experience, the reading experience, the solitude of watching something that you are interpreting off the page, rather than the more passive experience of just kind of the spectacle on screen, I think it allows one to get something that's very different and essential. And that's why I don't worry about books going away. I think what books give us is very different and very reflective. And my feeling is that while we have all of this consumption that is happening on screen and audio, people are beginning to live very busy lives, clearly, but they're beginning to live them more and more internally with their own devices. they are losing out on a lot of social relationships and a lot of, I mean, it's different when you're sitting here, right? You're sitting with classmates, friends, all of that. But a majority of the people seem to spend time with their device in a way that they don't anymore interact with the world. And I think in that set of solitude, the book is probably, the written word probably offers you a hell of a lot more depth than what is coming to you off your screen. It's a different matter that the numbers will never be the same. There might be a much smaller number of people willing to invest their time and energy in that. But I think it's worth that time and effort and investment and the challenge of it. So I would not worry about the book going away. But I think what has happened is the book has become a part of that big chain in a very interesting way.
Yes.
If the book happened in Game of Thrones, I mean, it was many years ago that it happened. And then it came on screen. And now we find that when people write books, they write for the screen almost simultaneously. They're like, how is this book going to convert onto audio, screen, other platforms, right? Digital lives beyond the book. So now people are conceptualizing the book differently. They're visualizing it as something that is going to be part of a chain of consumption, a part of an experience that is beyond the physical book. So I think we're all redefining what then that content of the book will be, what it could be, what it should be. And then there's the reverse, where, say, Voot creates a platform for a listening or a watching experience. We're looking at it and saying, hey, that's not a bad thing to bring back into book or, into a reading experience, because there's something else that it can do. So you're also looking at kind of reverse engineering that.
So tell me, if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is, that as somebody who commissions books or has done for a very long time. So earlier you looked at just how it will be in the book thing, but now at the inception stage itself, you're looking at, okay, how will this be an audio book? How will this be an OTT? How will this be something, an adaptation on podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So your idea of revenue has also got to change then. You're thinking not so much you're going to earn from the bookstores or from people buying off Amazon or whatever. That's definitely there. But you're also thinking, how am I going to make this author money by putting it on these different platforms, by getting them, authorship in a different way, and collaborations. I think the key to publishing now is collaboration. It's no longer the writer sitting on his own or her own, producing something which will go out in solitude. It's about creating something that will become multiple things at the end of the day. So I think that whole redefinition of the book is actually going on even now.
I think that's totally fascinating, Kartika. Thank you. Vivek, you have been tweeting in the last few days as somebody who is at the center of production in Bollywood. Shah Rukh Khan's early films, you were very much part of that. And you still have films on the floor, including OTT rights or something which Kartika has published in the past with Ashwin Sanghi. You have been tweeting in the last few days about the end of Bollywood. If I'm paraphrasing and trying to dumb it down a little, but you've been talking about how, because this year we've had so many films which came out and they've all been disasters commercially. So is that because of those films, or is it because something fundamentally is changing in the ecosystem with digital, which is what it's? So if you could expound on some of your thoughts which you put out a little bit on this, I was very curious to hear what you think.
In my days when I was a child, the ticket was 3 rupees. And if you were rich, you sat in the balcony at 3 rupees 50 paisa. Or if you were really very rich, you sat in the dress circle for 4 rupees 50 paisa. And at those prices, films like Sholay and Dharamveer and Amar Akbar Anthony and Zanjeer became giant blockbusters, with everyone becoming huge, rich, successful. And we used to call G.P. Sippy and Gulshan Rai and L.V. Prasad movie moguls. Today at 500 and 800 and 1000 and 1800 rupee tickets, no one is becoming a movie mogul. And no film is being successful in the cinemas. The reason is very simple. At 3 rupees, 97% of the audience had access to cinema. It was the cheapest form of entertainment. At 500 rupees, those who are not paying income tax can't go in because they're earning less than 20, 30, 40, 50,000 rupees a month. They can't spend 500 on a ticket and 500 on popcorn and 500 on parking. So they're not going. So we are left with 3% of the country, and that 3%, even if they go at 500 rupees and see a film twice, cannot make a film successful or a movie mogul. Came COVID, we stopped going. OTT came up because of COVID. We were sitting at home. And then the Chromas and the West Sides and the other tech retailers said, here's your 50-inch TV, pay $1,000 a month and take it home. Here's your 60-inch TV, pay $1,000 a month and take it home. So middle-class households have these huge 50 and 60-inch TVs. They're able to sit and watch OTT platforms of their choice at their time. That includes taxi drivers, that includes auto rickshaw drivers, that includes the coolies and the factory workers and the domestic help and the peons. So I have been saying continuously to the multiplexes, we as Bollywood, we as producers are not suffering. The theatrical revenue is only 5% of our total revenue in any case. If you don't bring down the cost of your popcorn and the cost of your ticket price, you are going to suffer. We are happy making films and giving them to
Can I say, I mean, I just saw an interview with Mr. Bijli who runs...
Yes, he said I'm very happy selling
it's
food.
the cost of popcorn and all that, and I can't reduce the cost.
Don't. I had this argument actually with Mr. Bijli when I made a film called Rough Book. I think it was a very nice film. It was a film about education, and I told him we want to distribute the film. So he said, we'll charge you 50 lakh rupees as a distribution fee, and then we will guide you as to how to put prints and publicity. I was born making films, gentlemen. I made 20 films before you came in the business. So don't tell me. So I only asked him one question. I said, if you want me to spend 5 crore rupees on prints, publicity, advertising, marketing, then to recover that 5 crores, I need to sell 15 crore worth of tickets. How do you plan that I do that? So he gave me this chart, we'll do this marketing. I said, no. To sell 15 crore worth of tickets, there have to be 15 crore worth of tickets to sell in the first place, in the market, as an inventory. You have to guarantee that for the 50 lakhs you're charging. He said, I can't guarantee that. I said, then what are you charging me 50 lakhs for? He said, for guidance. I said, all your guidance in the world, if you give me 50 rupees worth of tickets to sell, I can't recover 15 crores. He said, but it's our job. We are very happy if tickets don't sell. We are only happy if popcorn sells. They are not in the cinema business. They are in the real estate business and they are in the food business, and they're very clear about it. We are in the business of content. We are in the business of content creation. We are in the business of cinema. We are in the business of magic. So if they don't want to show our films, or if they want to show it at such usurer's rate that a taxi driver has to sell a kidney to come and see my film, don't bother. I will make sure you get the order. What I did with Rough Book was I went to schools. I charged the school 20,000 rupees, which is 200 students at 100 rupees each. The teachers were free, the domestic staff was free. I went to 800 schools and I recovered 1 crore 60 lakhs from Rough Book on a film that cost me 1 crore 50 lakhs. And it went to 17 international film festivals, and then it went on to Amazon, where it's been running non-stop for 5 years. And now we are renegotiating the next 5 years. I know my audience. I know my film. I wrote the script. I chose the cast. I made the budget. You're not allowing me to charge my ticket price. How is it? It's my baby until it's born. Then it becomes your baby and you can butcher it as you want. This is the problem with the industry today. If we do not stand up for the content we create, and if we don't take our content to audiences, regardless of the cinemas, and that's where OTT platforms, satellite channels, internet channels, podcast channels, and future technology will take us. Well, goodbye, multiplex.
I think you are so spot on to take on this whole conundrum which the industry is now in.
It's not a conundrum.
Nodding very vigorously.
It's not a conundrum. I have a film, I want them to see it at 100 rupees. Ajay Bijli saying that if they don't pay 500 rupees, they can't see it. So I go to her and she puts it on boot and they get to see it free. I'm happy, she's happy. Ajay Bijli can sell popcorn to whoever.
I wish we had Mr. Bijli here.
I would love to debate with him. You have to set that up.
This leads me to a question I want to ask Chanpreet, which is on...
But I must just add, I am one of the lucky people who knows cinema backwards. I am one of the lucky people that is in the education business. My job is to teach and mentor and guide them to becoming successful. I am not dependent on Mr. Ajay Bijli. You will be surprised how big production houses are crippled because if they don't get Inox or PVR, they can't release their films. And they don't realize what we did. We went to the South. We told the South people, because when you have a film like Jersey, for example, The Inoxes and the PVR say you can't play it at Nandi in Bandra because it's a non-AC theatre. You can't play it at Navrang because if you're going to give it to them at 50 rupees, who's going to come and buy my 500 rupee ticket? So they forbid it. So we took the single screens and we gave them South dubbed films. We gave them RRR, we gave them KFG, we gave them Pushpa, we gave them Valibai. Those films are doing 200 and 300 rupee ticket volumes, crores, at 50 rupees, 80 rupees, 100 rupees a ticket. And today, I must tell you, day before yesterday, on Thursday, Liger released. You all must have heard of Liger. Yes. Cinepolis has brought it down to 80 bucks, 100 bucks and 130 on Friday. And it's selling.
Well, Champi, to take on from Vivek is saying, if I can just add one little additional point to it, that because he mentioned RRR and there was Bahubali before that. What we are also seeing at one level, at the content level, you are seeing this huge shift in the creator economy between the big guys and the smaller guys and the guys who are smarter, but also in terms of languages, because you have seen multiple releases in multiple languages.
Yes.
For example, we've been looking at some rights for a book, and this book is in English. People are only interested in the language rights of its on OTT, and not necessarily on the English rights. Because English is such a small market. So the question I want to ask you is that he talked about the film universe, but overall, even the film universe is part of that. When you look at the OTT business, we are still figuring out the right model, right? There is advertiser model, and then there is the paid model. And then there is a mixed model also somewhere in the middle, the premium kind of model. So where do you see this going over the next 2 or 3 years? And what's viable?
So thanks for asking this question, Nalin. I think it's important for us to reflect on our history before we arrive at this answer, and it will be self-evident then. Whether you look at print industry, which is the newsprint and magazines, daily newspapers, or you look at television industry, it is about 80% advertising and 20% subscription. If you look at micro business models like news versus entertainment and sports, 3 broad strokes, news is entirely advertising, right? And where there is content exclusivity, that's when subscription starts to play a role. And the cost of content production is so high, whereas the capacity or propensity to pay is not commensurate with it, especially in a market like India, where our cost of production is not lower vis-a-vis the CPM rates or the subscription ARPU. It's not that much lower. It takes us, can't give away business secrets, but let's just say a match in IPL, I believe, and I'm not sure, is close to 32 to 35 cameras, right, per match. Look at the cost of production of sports content itself. So it is supported by subscription and advertising. Not just in India market. If you look at even, let's say, the most sophisticated markets like US and UK, the very expensive content, which is sports, is subscription plus advertising. No single model can support it. So I would expect that stable state in every platform in the country is where 90% or 80% of audiences, anywhere between 80 to 90%, will remain in the both duly funded.
Karthika, can I ask you on this? Because you are now experimenting with new forms of digital storytelling. One thing is the big boss kind of programming, which I post on a platform. And then there is non-fiction, and there is fiction, and the traditional kinds of publishing, or let's say kids writing, which you are now putting on digital platforms. So the challenges that, say, a Vivek or a Chanpreet deal with, whether on a pay-for-view thing or a free access on digital, how do these appear to you when you are looking at converting your content into these platforms?
I think we're learning along the way. There's no rules yet out there. But I think what is interesting is that we've discovered what has failed. And the failure is that, by and large, young people don't want to read in the conventional way. They're not interested in reading cover to cover, front, a 500-page book like yours may be. It's a little difficult, and it requires a different energy and a different commitment, right? They're not interested in that for the most part. But it's not true that young people don't read. I think they read, but they read differently, and they want content that works for them, not stuff that has traditionally perhaps worked. And one of the things we discovered in Pratilipi, I can see, is that serializing of stories, for instance, so you read 800 words today and then you want to know what happened next. So in a sense, you're going back to the old tabloid serializing, but this is very exciting. So first thing in the morning, you're kind of
That's
checking
what
out.
Dickens did, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All his work was first serialized in tabloid,
yeah.
and then became the
And this
Household
is
words.
true of magazines.
Household words.
Yeah, and also Malayalam, Bengali, Marathi, Hindi, everywhere. The magazine format was about serializing. So I think this now transported into the digital space seems to be working really well. You have limited time. You're willing to invest that in half an hour of reading something. And then you move on. And the next day you wake up. It's like I'm addicted to Wordle. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I have to do my Wordle and I have something to do with my coffee. I think there are lots of people who are willing to say, hey, I want to continue that story from yesterday and I'll just read that much. And then I go on. I have the anticipation of the new every day. I'm not sitting with one finished product. This product is evolving in front of my eyes. And I'm not just a passive consumer, I'm almost like a participant because I'm discovering it and my feedback is going into, or my response, how many people downloaded that story, how many read it today, okay, something needs to change. So 5 days down, something about that story might change because of my response. So I am part of this process of creation. And I think, therefore, there's a whole new system coming into place for the word, which we still don't know exactly where it will go, but I think it's going in exciting directions.
Jaya, I know you're addicted to Wordle because you put out your Wordle report card every morning on a tweet.
Only when I do it really smartly.
Okay. Jaya, you want to comment on that, on changing patterns of this? I mean, you heard Vivek, Chanpreet and Kartika. Do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, I think it's evolving so fast. But if you actually look at production of content in different formats over the centuries, technology is what changes, but the basic principles remain the same. So whether Dickens is a fine example, Lord Byron, all of them, even many of our own manuscripts, etc., we've had serialization, we've had in the Regency period, we had lending libraries with 3 slim volumes, which was easy to access the reading public and the market, so that from the same production, you could have a larger readership, right? And what is that like in, you got a nice price point, you made it available in a lending library. If somebody was rich enough, they could buy the three volumes. Before that, with Gutenberg, within few months of his production, from just having a couple of printed volumes, illuminated manuscripts in churches, or with the rich, you had 20 lakh volumes in production by the time the first Frankfurt Book Fair happened in 1495. And then now, what is happening now? When I did a dateline, when I did a timeline of the way technology has moved so rapidly in the 21st century, and the way content is moving, and with it, if you make the parallel lines of subscription models, acquisition and mergers, rapidly evolving appetites, how does you have a demand which is, because where is the demand coming from? It is the readership, it is the content consumption, it is the market, which is a behavioral change, which changes because it's a human. The brain is adapting and the goalpost is shifting. So the supply has to adopt. When Chanpreet says that there are 3 models and we have to adopt and we have to see the middle ground, that by the time you catch up with it, it's like a parent catching up with a new child in the language. You've moved on. You've moved on. The trickiest is the commercials. I love the way where Vivek constantly reiterates, never does he say commercials, though it is very, very critical to his budgeting, etc. He always talks about success. And he talks about theatre, film, all these different productions. He talks about success. Kartika is getting into a new space, and Kartika and I have known each other for God knows how long, and we've talked about different product samples there.
Can I say, Vivek, with your permission, quote him, he once told me that people don't understand, they come and tell me film banana seekna, they don't understand, you're not in the business of making a film, you're in the business of putting bums in the theatre seats. You have to get them there.
Exactly. or even when we look at content, when we look at manuscripts, or when we look at when Karthik and I look at manuscripts, or we look at essays or writing, how do you discern that this person has the potential of offering something more?
So actually, I must add to that. I have a mic. 40 films with 40 debut directors doesn't mean I saw talent. I saw Majboori.
Yeah.
I saw people who wanted to. I didn't see talent, but I saw one thing. I saw a passion for movies. And they would come with me. I would call them at 8 o'clock and say, come at 9 o'clock. We are going to Opera House to see Amar Akbar Antony. Or we are going to Super Cinema to see Sabak starring Shatrughan Sinha. But they would come and we would talk. Now, the most important thing I had to tell them is that there is no such thing as a good film or a bad film.
Exactly.
It's subjective. So, every time Nasiruddin Shah gives a performance, somebody's house gets sold. Every time Jitendra didn't give a performance, they're buying Mercedes. So, I don't know, and this is what I told Shah Rukh. I said, I don't know the difference between a good performance and a bad performance. All I know is that there is a successful performance, and the objective yardstick for that success is the balance sheet of the film. If you understand balance sheets, you will become the biggest star in the country. He did and he is. It's actually as simple as that.
Yeah.
We are sitting and moaning and groaning about Lal Singh Chadda. They've not been fools. There was a boycott Bollywood and there was all that. But I could have told you without boycott Bollywood that post-COVID, when people have lost their salaries, when people have got back their jobs at 30% less, when kids have less pocket money, when housewives have less money to spend, they are not going to give you a 500 rupee ticket. It doesn't matter whether it's Amir Khan or not. At 200 rupees a ticket, that film would have been a super hit.
Thank you, Vivek. We are really out of time, and our producer is signaling to me frantically. So I'll take a couple of questions very quickly and we'll close. Questions? Yes, Nancy. Nancy and then you.
Yeah.
There you go, Nancy.
So my question would be that one of the most unique thing about OTT is because it is uncensored. The content is not censored yet. So my question is and the government is trying their best to put censorship or sensory board or some regulatory body over OTT content. So if it happens, do you think it's going to change how OTT is performing and may lose its charm?
Do you want to take the second question, and we'll take 2-3 questions together, and then we can get quick responses.
So with content that we are curating right now, media has been here for quite some time, for quite long. So now every time there's somebody's putting out content, it needs to be unconventional. So how to keep up with that? How can you also show up, conventional things and make it unconventional to the public with OTTs and with how things are emerging?
Anybody else wants to ask a question? Yes, probably, please. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Vivek's like the popcorn other things are affecting the audience going to the theaters. But there's one thing, like if that is affecting, then how come RRR, KGF and making huge money? Because I myself being because there's something which is missing in some of those movies, like that experience when you experience KGF in theater and other things. Yeah. Okay. So there is something else then also, I think, which is also missing in the Bollywood. That's why, like when Dhanush acts in Tamil movies, he's a different Dhanush. When he comes to Bollywood, he's a different Dhanush. He's not that successful, that actor in Bollywood. So maybe there is something else also. So you could reflect upon that. Thank you.
One last question, and then we'll go to the responses. Question there.
So digital media has actually outrightly grown in all spheres, but with the incoming of OTT platforms, the traditional media has actually lost its charm. So I would like to know the comments upon it. Like, is there any form that traditional media would actually be taking hold in future or not?
Do you want to start with responding on the starting question censorship?
Yeah, no, I'll start.
She doesn't need the mic.
Sorry, thanks. Hi, so first of all, I just want to say that there is not going to be any one platform. This is going to be an business always. The love for books, the love for TV, the love for cinema, the love for mobile, digital entertainment will remain. And we see it as a group. We are, where I work right now, our films are doing well, our television business is growing, and so is our digital business. And so we look at it as an and economy, not as a one single platform economy. I'm going to answer the question related to regulation. We already do come under the INB Ministry regulation for content censorship. We do self censorship, but not censorship. Let me please correct here. Like we do check our content, and we are now under the mandate to check our content and do age appropriate profiling. Where we have an advantage as OTT platforms is that we have logged in user base. It's a huge advantage knowing who your user is and then being able to serve the right kind of content to them, and that's our endeavor. So it is not that it's not that we don't take responsibility of the fact that our content shapes culture. In fact, we do, and part of that is that when a newspaper comes to the house or a TV channel is opened, vis-a-vis an OTT is opened, you know who is logging in. And then we have age profiles too. As far as content and storytelling is concerned, I think I'd go to Vivek. You'd like to mention how storytelling is changing for you on digital versus movies
So
in theater or TV.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that storytelling is a universal concept. We tell stories. The rest of it is about formats.
Yeah.
The 2-hour format is the feature film, the 20-hour format is the OTT platform, the 22-minute format is the television serial. It's about formats, which is specialization. So when you write, you specialize in writing a feature film, or you specialize in writing for OTT, or you specialize in writing books or novels or magazine articles or poetry. There are 23 different kinds of writing. You have to choose what you write best and write. But technology, digital technology, these are the tools. The most important thing that they cannot take away from you, which is what is going to make you successful as opposed to anybody else, is what cannot be robotized, what cannot be automized, what cannot be computerized. Your brain, your imagination, your skill, your talent, your discipline, your dedication, your persistence, your perseverance, your hard work. These 10 things that I have listed have to be part of you as a human being. You cannot say, I have all the digital tools in the world and they're going to be great servants. But if you don't use your brain, your imagination and your talent to translate your storytelling abilities using all the tools that you have, then it's not going to be successful.
So Chalpreet, you were telling me when we were driving here that how you tell your team about that don't be scared of making mistakes, because nobody in the world can really know every toolkit and everything, and sometimes you are in meetings and you don't know what they're talking about, but you learn that, right? But fundamentally it goes back to how do you adapt. These tools are just tools, but the creative process remains constant, and that's a good note to end on this fascinating discussion on the future of which is digital, which, as Kartika said, is scary, but it's also interesting and creative, and I think it's what you make of it. So thank you so much, and for joining this very special broadcast from the School of Modern Media at UPS.